We're going to get Josh in here from Arizona. Josh wants to discuss faith and belief in general. Josh, can you expand on that?
Hello. Yeah, well, the idea, the way I look at belief is more of like a trust. I look at it like a simple trust. Like if I trust something or someone, I'm typically going to believe it until like.
Do you believe a person or do you believe a thing that a proposition though? By that, I mean,
either or.
You can believe a thing a person says, but you can also believe there is no car coming down the street, so it is safe to cross. So in that sense, you are trusting your senses, but belief is accepting that a proposition is true. Would you agree with that as a definition? You have become convinced that this proposition, whatever it is true.
Like for example, going to school, I would trust science a lot. I had a lot of belief in science, even though I wasn't really that much of a believer in God, but I was naturally to trust people who were in authority of me, who have education, who are teaching something. And I think that, like, for instance,
do you think that's science?
A big topic, but like globe Earth, for instance, you got flat Earth, globe Earth, and there's a lot of science, and it's above my head. But
here's a secret. I want you to continue. It's not above your head, but go ahead.
I've tried. I've listened. I've listened to lots of debates on it. It's very complicated. There's a lot of mathematics. There's a lot going on there. But okay, so one time I just want to make a critique.
Sure. Real
quick, because I understand you guys think the Bible is just, man wrote it, man, there's no inspired God behind it. But for Christians, for believers, we actually take this Bible very serious.
We know that.
You guys,
we agree that. Do you know who Justin is?
Yeah,
do you know Justin's background? Did we lose Josh?
I've heard him. Yes, I know he's very. Yeah. I know he's.
Justin went to seminary and studied this. I don't want to speak for you, Justin, but you're talking to somebody who truly believed this to the level that he was dedicating his life to it and invested his education and has gone and can recite pretty much most of the Bible from memory, as far as my experience goes. So he knows this inside and out. So let's start from that premise. You're talking to somebody who went through that. What do you have to say to Justin about that? That now that he has found that there is not enough evidence to support the supernatural claims that are in the Bible?
Well, I mean, for one, I don't know Justin. I know you somewhat cross-examine. I've listened to you longer. So I can't really make too much of a comment on that. But I'm just saying, in terms of, like, beliefs, right? Like, the same way you guys kind of bash the Bible is the same way people bash transgender ideology. Well, and I don't think that's good either way.
Justin do? Yeah, go ahead, Justin. I don't bash the Bible. Do you?
I mean, I bash the Bible, but I don't know if that matters. People bash all kinds of holy books. I think the question is whether or not it's true, right? Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't matter. Like if I say something bad about the Quran, like the fact that I said something bad about the Quran, for most people is irrelevant. They want to know, is the thing leaving my mouth true or not? So like when I talk about the various religions, the question that I'm trying to get at when I'm having a discussion is, well, who's actually right? If this book is from God, can you provide me the evidence that would lead me to conclude that it is from God? Because I can go into the Bible and I can find dozens of contradictions, even contradictions between Jesus and Paul. I could find historical errors. There's dozens and dozens of failed prophecies. Even Jesus' own predictions don't come true. So if there's evidence that would point to this thing being true, I'd love to actually see it, because the evidence I've been able to find points me in the other direction.
The idea because something is true justifies bashing is not valid. So people,
I'm confused. Explain that. I'm explain that. So if it is true that the Bible let's take the mildest of bashings. If it is true that the Bible depicts a story of Jesus cursing a fig tree because he didn't like that it doesn't grow figs when he wants them, isn't it fair and accurate to A, say that that's what the Bible says, and B, say that seems ridiculous? That's the mildest of bashing. Isn't that, okay, is that what you're talking about? Like just saying what the Bible actually says and then saying that seems ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, that, like I'm saying, with the transgender ideology, that's like saying that's ridiculous. But these are people's beliefs.
So
I don't understand. If somebody comes to me and says I shouldn't vaccinate my kid, that's their belief. I'm not going to agree with them, and I'm going to say you're wrong. And if you go around telling other people this, I'm going to tell them that you are lying about the effectiveness of vaccines. Just because it's their belief doesn't mean that I have to respect it. I respect them as a human being, but I don't have to give any respect to their beliefs. Don't you agree with that?
No, I agree. You don't have to respect the belief per se, but you have to respect the person.
Right.
Well,
okay.
We're not bashing the person, but let me ask you a question. The Quran allows you to marry and divorce prepubescent girls. Is that a ridiculous belief?
It depends on if you're talking to the person. The person has that belief, right?
Joshua, we're not talking about the person. We're talking about what the text says. So
take a breath, Joshua. You just said it depends as to whether or not it's morally good thing for grown men to marry and divorce prepubescent girls. So take a breath. Think. We're not trying to set a trap here. Take a breath. Talk to Justin about this.
Right. So, Joshua, I want to make sure you're understanding what I'm saying properly. So just take a deep breath. Like, I'm not here to attack you. So if you don't know, I'll tell you, the Quran allows for marriage and divorce of prepubescent girls. The Prophet himself was married to a 6-year-old, consummated at age 9. And in multiple countries right now that is in that theocracy, they allow you to marry girls as low as age 9. So I'm asking you, would I be justified in criticizing that belief?
In criticizing it, the belief, sure.
Okay, so I'm treating the nonsense in your holy book the same way I'm treating the nonsense in their holy book, and you just don't like it because it makes you uncomfortable. But the fact that it makes you uncomfortable doesn't take away the rationale behind whether or not people can look at a holy book and say, that sounds silly to me. So if you have an argument for God or for the Bible, I'd love to engage in that argument. But if you just came to complain that like we're stepping on your comfortability, then I don't really care for that. And we can move on to the next caller. So did you want to talk about the topic or did you want to complain?
No, it's okay. Basically, the idea is that I think faith is just trust. And I typically usually trust experts, not just anyone.
So you're looking at one.
When it comes to like,
so here's a question. You said that you listened to debates and did research on flat Earth, and it was over your head, and you didn't know what to believe, right?
No, I did not say that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That the globe Earth because, I believe globe Earth because I was taught that. Yeah.
You believe it. Why? Because you were taught it. Is that what you're saying? Because a person in authority told you that thing?
Yes, pretty much.
Is that a good reason to believe something?
Yeah. I typically think yes, because they're the experts. And I think that's how we function in society. Yeah.
Okay. The follow-up question is, I tend to agree with you, but I think that belief is a little more subtle. So belief can be granted based on varying thresholds of evidence. If you come to me and say, I had a tuna fish sandwich for lunch, I might believe you, right? Like, People, I know what a tuna is. I know people make sandwiches out of it. I know that they eat them for lunch. There's not really, I can't see a reason you would lie. So I might believe you. If you then said, I ate that tuna fish sandwich while I was on a flying saucer, now all of a sudden I might not believe you. Maybe I believe you ate the sandwich, but the flying saucer all of a sudden makes the threshold a little different. So I tend to agree with you. If you're in school and you're hearing from a teacher that, hey, this is this and that is that, and you believe and there's not much at stake, then maybe that's a good or a low enough threshold that you can believe. But when you start moving to more important questions, right? Like, does anything happen to us after we die? Should a grown man marry and have sex with a 9-year-old girl? Was it ever morally justified to own slaves? Those questions seem to be bigger and demand more skepticism, a higher amount of evidence before you accept them. Would you agree with that?
I know that's the claim. I'm not sure. I think once you have a level of trust with authority, with anyone, you typically don't need much evidence.
Okay, so you get trust from somebody who comes along and says, hey, I'm your friend, and you get to know them over a period of time. Maybe you do some business dealings with them, and they return lost money that they found of yours and all that stuff. They build up trust, and then they say, hey, I got this new investment. If you just give me $1 million, I'm going to double that in a year. Would you trust them?
I could easily fall prey to them. Yeah, if they're my friend and I trust them, sure.
Okay, so I think I applaud you. You are the caller of the day so far. No. I am saying you are the caller of the day for the honesty in that answer, because I think that is what we're talking about. That as the claim increases, the outrageousness of the claim, the extraordinary aspects of the claim go up, your demand for evidence needs to go up. Otherwise, you fall victim to confidence tricksters, which is exactly, they're named that, con men, confidence scams, because of the phenomenon you're talking about right now. I gain your confidence, i.e. trust, and then I take advantage of that trust to extract value from you. Yeah,
because that's what trust is. Trust is you don't need much evidence once you have trust.
I disagree. I disagree. I trust my wife and my son with a whole bunch. But if they came to me and said, I just saw a dinosaur in our backyard, I am not going to believe them.
You might trust that they're being genuine.
That's not what I said. I may believe that they believe that there's a dinosaur, but I am not going to believe that there is, in fact, a dinosaur in the backyard, and neither should you, and you know you wouldn't. You know that this concept of trust being a binary thing is a false construction. You trust people up to a certain amount, and that amount is determined by how well you know them, what is at stake, and what is the claim being made.
I understand.
It's nothing for me to believe that you ate a tuna fish sandwich. It's everything for me to believe that I need to give money to your church so I can go to an afterlife.
I've had a brother that had schizophrenia.
That's not the point. Listen, Josh, not the point. Not the point, right? It has nothing to do with this. Well, the point is, the bigger the claim, the more evidence you should require.
Right.
I hope that is what you take away from this, because you are admitting that you are vulnerable to con men, to politicians telling you don't need to vaccinate your kids so they can make money off of their supplements, all sorts of stuff that you'll be vulnerable to should you not demand evidence. I'm sorry, Justin, go ahead.
Well, I think it's kind of a silly thing, because just willing to trust somebody doesn't mean you should trust everything that they tell you. And so we have the same problem like with Christians with the Bible. Like, they read something and they like it, and then they accept it, and then they have this position that everything in the Bible should be trusted and shouldn't be questioned. But like, if you just read the book, it's a very questionable book. Like, even Jesus himself doesn't know how to read the Old Testament properly. He quotes it out of context, makes predictions for the future that don't come true. In Matthew 16, 27 and 28, he says his second coming is going to happen before all the people standing there listening to him pass away. And it just simply didn't happen. He repeats the claim in Matthew chapter 24, and he repeats it again in Matthew 10, 23. So like, if I'm just looking at the book and saying, hey, like, are all of these claims true in the book? Should I trust the book? The answer is clearly no. It's making all kinds of claims that are not true. It says that the Exodus happened in the middle of the 1400s when Ramses was the pharaoh. Ramses wasn't the pharaoh until the middle of the 1200s. So the Bible doesn't even get chronology right.
That's a great point. What are your thoughts on that, Josh?
Well, I mean, but then, well, I would say there's lots of people saying the opposite.
Okay, let's just assume you're right. I disagree with that. I disagree with that entirely. I think most scholars will agree with everything that Justin said, especially the Christian scholars. But let's just assume you're right. What do you do? What do you do if half of the scholars say Ramses was only pharaoh in the 1200s and the other half say Ramses are in the 1400s? What do you do? What's your answer if somebody says, do you believe that Ramses was a pharaoh during the Exodus? What's your answer?
I don't know. I haven't looked into that.
Perfect. No, that's the answer. I don't know.
A lot of
that's the answer.
I accepted a lot of Christianity before I read it. That's typically the case of trust. Now, going back to what you said, cross-examiner, I want to make a comment.
But
this idea
I just want to point out
that your wife
the point we're trying to make is you shouldn't just blindly trust things. You should examine everything. And just because someone tells you something, you shouldn't trust it, even if you think they're a trustworthy source. Because at the end of the day, you don't know if what they're telling you is true. Like, you have to do the work yourself to find out if you're being told the truth.
I agree, but if I've already accepted it, that's different. What I'm saying, when it comes to cross-examiner, right, and his wife telling him there's a dinosaur, he already rejects the fact that there's dinosaurs existing. So he already has a presupposition already. That's why he rejects it. But if he did not have that already, why would he reject it?
What comes with the term of dinosaur, right? What comes with it is my experience reading about dinosaurs, taking class on paleontology and world history and geology. All of that gets boiled into the mix to say, we know that there were dinosaurs. We have evidence. I've been to museums and I've studied the placards that tell me when these animals lived. I have never seen a dinosaur. We don't have any films of dinosaurs. David Attenborough is not narrating The Earth 4, in which he says, see the mighty brontosaurus as it seeks out a mate with its bellowing call. None of that exists. The only place I see them are in awesome Steven Spielberg movies, right? So yes, there is a framework in which I live, and that all of the facts I have ever experienced about dinosaur existence agree and point to something, and that is it would be nigh, not absolutely, but nigh impossible for there to be a dinosaur in my backyard. Importantly, I didn't say I believe there is not a dinosaur in my backyard. What I said is I don't believe my wife when she says there is one. I reject the claim that there is a dinosaur in my backyard. That doesn't mean I am 100% sure that there is no dinosaur, because I could walk out there and maybe she was talking about a toy dinosaur. Maybe somebody did the Jurassic Park and resurrected dinosaurs and it broke loose and it is in our backyard. Who knows? But until I investigate, I'm rejecting that claim, especially from my wife, based on all of my experience. But I technically would reject somebody who said there is absolutely no dinosaur in the backyard because I haven't investigated. So I'm back at I don't know until I go look. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hey, Josh, you want to read a Bible passage with me?
Yeah, that's fine.
This is my favorite passage. It's in Deuteronomy 22.
Me in Sunday school. Yeah, that's fine.
It says, if you have a Bible, follow along. It doesn't matter what translation. It's all going to read roughly the same. It says, suppose a man marries a woman, but after going into her, dislikes her. And you know what that means. It says he makes up charges against her, slandering her by saying, I married this woman, but when I lay with her, I did not find evidence of her virginity. So we're tracking so far. He's saying, listen, we had a wedding. I went into her. There was no blood. Didn't appear that she was a virgin. Now we got a problem, right? Well, what happens when you take her to the elders of the city? It says the father of the young woman will say to the elders, hey, I gave my daughter in marriage to this man, but he dislikes her. Now he's made up charges against her, claiming that he didn't find evidence of my daughter's virginity. But here's the evidence. They'll spread out the cloth before the elders of the town, and then the elders of the town will take that man and punish him. Okay, so if the parents produced the cloth from the wedding night, which was customary, so you actually consummated the wedding at the wedding. You did the deed during the wedding party, and there were typically attendants at a tent. They would make a bed, they would lay down the sheet. There was attendants that watched you walk in and watched you come out to verify that there was no funny business with the sheet. And if there was blood on that sheet, then that means she was in fact a virgin. Now listen to what it says here in verse 20. If the charge is true, that evidence of the young woman's virginity was not found, then they will bring the young woman out to the entrance of her father's house, and the men of her town shall stone her to death because she's committed a disgraceful act in Israel by prostituting herself in her father's house. So if the man is caught lying, then he pays a fine. If the woman is caught theoretically lying, then she gets stoned. So I've got two questions. First question is, do you think that's fair?
I don't know. I don't understand the whole context. I mean, I can't just give you full trust, as in to know the scriptures.
You don't have to trust me. The question is,
look it up. He gave you chapter and verse. You could read along. You can literally go to Bible.com or just Google the chapter and verse. I will tell you, I have read this. This is literally what it says. Produce the evidence. If you can't, you are going to die as a woman. So
that's what it says.
And even if you don't trust him that that's actually true, let's just say that is what it says. Let's take that as the hypothetical, which it is true, but let's just take that as the premise. Is that fair?
Keep in mind that the trial is about who's lying.
I'm not sure if I'm even tracking, to be honest.
Woman lies, she dies. Man lies, he gets a fine. Is that fair?
No.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Second question. The test as to whether or not she was a virgin was whether or not she bled on a sheet. Are you aware that only about 45% of women actually bleed the first time they do the deed, and a small percentage of women aren't even born with hymens? Are you aware of this fact?
No, I'm not too educated on the science of that, no.
Yeah, neither was God. That's why this God is fiction. He doesn't exist. There's no way he created human beings and then didn't know that women didn't always bleed the first time. And if he did know it, then he's the most barbaric creator in the world, because he's charging the Israelites to kill innocent women.
Yeah, I was gonna, as soon as you said he didn't know, I'm like, or he did and it's worse, right? Like it's that old question. You were either incompetent or you're evil. Which one is it, right?
I mean, one can know and not reveal.
I think you're throwing out phrases that have nothing to do with the conversation at this point.
Yeah, I think you're just
you're saying that flailing. God didn't. You're saying God didn't. Well, the claim is that God didn't reveal modern day scientific.
No. The claim is God, who supposedly designed women, God created a law that says if women don't bleed on wedding night, you can kill her. God created that law. It has nothing to do with modern science. God said that according to the Bible, right? That's the law. Then people followed the law. I don't know if you've seen videos of stoning. They're not pretty. It's long, takes a lot of time, bloody, it's barbaric. People did this based on this book. So there's two things that are possibly true. God knew that only 45% of women virgins would bleed on their first night and didn't care and was fine with 55% of them being at risk of being stoned to death, or he didn't know or didn't exist. One of those must be true. Either answer is bad, right? Either he didn't exist, or the figure of God literally didn't know, or he did know and he's the worst dictator we've ever encountered on earth. Which do you think it is?
I don't know.
Okay. Can I give you some advice?
Is it okay for me to say I don't know?
100%, it is the best answer you can give. 100%, it is the best answer you can give. I applaud you for saying you don't know when you don't know. But I'd like to give you some advice, because I can hear some weariness in your voice as you say I don't know. And that weariness has to do with the effort it's taking to think about these things and address them, right? My advice is take it one bit at a time. Go back and start at the basics, right? Start with doing some critical thinking exercises. There are free courses online that teach critical thinking as a topic. They teach logic, and it's not above anybody's head. You can just get back to what is logic, how does it work, and what are the common logical fallacies. Once you do that, then start asking questions of every fact that is asserted, especially the supernatural ones in the Bible, and ask what evidence and logic supports any of this. And when you have questions, come talk to us, or talk to both us and a preacher, and compare the answers you get and the evidence that you're provided and the questions that are asked by those people. It's not beyond anybody. It's not complicated. It's very simple. The problem is people have been taught to believe that it's very complicated and mysterious, much like if you've seen the movie Wicked with Wizard of Oz. Don't look at the man behind the curtain, right? Just read the Bible, trust the Wizard of Oz, and don't look behind the curtain, because if you do, you'll realize it's a house of cards and it all falls apart. We're not making this up. We've lived through it. Justin was a firm believer. I was never a believer, but I sought truth through my life. We've both come to the same conclusion that there's not a sufficient evidence to say that any of the supernatural claims in the Bible are true.
Right. Yeah. So Josh, it was good talking to you, but it sounds like you need to read the text and think on it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Good talking to you guys. Take care.
Same. I appreciate your candor.